It's time for our theme of the week. Castles. Castles is the theme of this week. And we're joined by Matt Lewis from the Gone Medieval podcast. Lovely to see you again, Matt. How are you?
It's great to see you again, Harry. Yeah. I'm very well, thank you. Are you?
Yeah, it's not bad. You know, we're joined here with Stuart Lee. You're familiar with Stuart's work?
Hi, Stuart. Of course.
Of course. So we're going to start in fairly basic. What is a castle?
I mean, the technical description for a castle is a private fortified residence. So It's a building that normally one person owns, probably a lord of some description, an earl or something in the medieval period, and they fortify it for defensive purposes to keep them safe from the local population who may not be their biggest fans.
I see. Okay. And so when were the first castles built, do you think?
I mean, this is a debated subject, so I'm going to put my neck on the block here. But European castles begin to emerge in the kind of 9th and 10th centuries in response to the breakdown of Charlemagne's empire and the fracturing of government. So there is much more of a need for local warlords to be able to protect themselves and the population around them. So they begin to build castles, and it's often referred to as the privatization of government, which sounds really, really meaningful. But what it means is anyone that could afford to was building a big enough house to protect what they had. Oh,
I see. So prior to that, everyone was getting on fine. Is that
for the most part? There was an empire that was trying to keep everything together, and there was a semblance of law and order. But you get the arrival, alongside the breakdown of the Carolingian Empire, you get the arrival of people like the Vikings. So it's all kicking off at the same time, and people decide that castles that you can defend seem like a really good idea.
I see. So, for instance, you're welcome to join in at any point, Stu.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the Romans wouldn't have had the need for castles. How did they protect their
Not necessarily. So Romans, I mean, the word castle is derived from Latin. It's derived from the Latin word castellum or castrum, which just means a fortified place. Romans had what they would call castles, and we also have things like Iron Age hill forts and things like that, but they were much more communal, so they didn't belong to a single person.
Right.
There was a whole community that would be within an Iron Age hill fort.
Oh, that's really interesting, because I love Iron Age hill forts, and I go on walks to them, and I like it when you can walk along a ridge somewhere and you do like 5 or 6 in a day, and they do feel like happy places, not like they don't feel like they're the scenes of terrible violence like castles do. Although there's one just up from Minchinhampton, which was the first place in England that they found arrowheads that had been made out of iron. So obviously there was like violence going on there, but they've got a nice feel to them and a nice view, and I like the ditches feel really natural and like contoured. They seem like happy places where communities lived, rather than castles which do look like an exercise, a display of power.
But is that partly, do you think, because you have to pay to get in to see a castle?
Yes, I think so. You already feel resentful of the people.
And also they're kind of sold, they're marketed, castles, very much as, dungeons and torture and bad.
That's what we liked about them as kids. I used to like going to Warwick Castle because you could see the absolutely horrific conditions that the people had been kept in. There's a thing there called Little Ease, I remember, and it's about that high, and they would lock people in it for years.
What was it?
It was just a place where you were really uncomfortable forever because it was too small. It's like this.
I knew that was coming. You can't resist it. To have a dig. So who were the owners? So these first castles were owned by basically people with money. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, essentially anyone who had enough money to build one and enough to protect that they felt they needed one. So as the Carolingian Empire breaks up, you get small local regional warlords, and they will gather as much wealth as they possibly can, and once they've got tons of gold and lots of people who don't like them anymore, then they need some way to protect themselves. So these castles begin to spring up, and then they develop over the centuries that follow. They are shaped by things like the Crusades, have a big effect on castles. So people see the way that castles are built in the Near East and the technologies that they're using there and the designs that they have, and they bring them back. Famously, Edward I did a lot of that. He went on crusade to the Holy Land and came back with lots of brand new ideas about how to make all of his castles better.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Matt, I prefer ruined castles because I find them more romantic. So, what's your favourite ruined castle in the British Isles, and what is your favourite castle that is more or less intact, or is at least presented as if it were a functioning place?
Yeah, I think my favourite castle anywhere in the world is Ludlow Castle, which is mostly ruined.
Superb. Yeah.
Never been.
I absolutely love it. I find it's such an atmospheric place, and it's such a huge open space. You really get a sense of, castles used to be bustling places where those open spaces that we see today would have been filled with buildings and people working, and smell of bakeries and the sound of the blacksmith working away. They would have been a real hub of the local community and really busy places, and it's hard to get a sense of that when you visit some of those ruins today.
Wasn't it?
But I absolutely adore Ludlow, and I think my favourite kind of still operational castle is probably Windsor. Windsor is a fabulous place to go and visit. Probably the longest inhabited castle in the UK now.
Was it at Ludlow that Simon de Montfort had a massive event to try and impress, I think, Elizabeth, wasn't it? And he had like huge water features built and people dressed up as whales and all kinds of things in those grounds. It was a famously massive event to... No, could be wrong.
That might have been was that Kenilworth?
Robert Dudley
was Kenilworth, put on firework displays and things at Kenilworth to try and impress Elizabeth I.
And it was Kenilworth where Edward II was assaulted with a poker, wasn't it?
That's Berkeley Castle,
Berkeley
allegedly,
Castle.
supposedly, but it didn't happen. So.
I am here,
Yeah.
Hi, Harry.
You've really hit it off with Matt, and I just
Ludlow
feel like,
is great. Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind
You
of.
can have a good day out in Ludlow. There's a good second-hand bookshops as well. Nice market in the town.
Yeah. Can we try and get back onto just like broaden it out a bit, just to sort of castles in general? I mean, that's very interesting. But Ludlow. So, who built Ludlow Castle? Who owned that one?
The most famous people who owned it were the Mortimer family, who were responsible for deposing Edward II, and then it fell into the hands of the Yorkist family, who became kings. So Edward IV, Richard III, those people owned Ludlow Castle too, and it's part of the Welsh border castle. So they call it the Welsh Marches, the borderland along England and Wales. And it's believed that the Welsh Marches is the place that has the highest density of castles anywhere in the world, because it was such a kind of lawless, Wild West atmosphere that everybody out there was building castles.
Oh, I see. So was it to stop them from coming over here?
Yeah, and vice
It was
versa.
really, yeah. It was to fix a boundary and stop the Welsh attacking.
Stop the coracles. So what you're saying is the castle, the outside of the castle, those what looks like from the outside the castle, that is just a sort of precinct area, and inside is all these houses and bakeries and shops. Is it like a shopping
You made
centre?
it sound really rubbish. You made it sound like
an early shopping mall.
Outlet centre.
Sounds like the MacArthur Glen
You can get like really big
retail
shirts
park.
there. And get big shirts for lorry drivers there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that right? So it would be how many people would be living? Say, let's take, since you brought it up, Ludlow Castle. How many people would be living there? What, 1,000?
Not that many, no. There wouldn't be all that many living within the castle, but lots of people would work in there. So they might live in the town outside, but they would work inside the castle, doing any kind of job that the castle needed to keep it going. And they would be in the outermost part of the castle, so the outer bailey, and they would be the first things that would be lost if the castle was under assault, because the idea is that you have these kind of concentric defences that are centred around. So in the middle you have the keep, the big tower that is at the middle of the castle, and that's the place where you're going to make your last stand. So you build all of these layers of defence out from there, but the idea is the keep is somewhere that you can defend hopefully almost indefinitely.
Some of the questions that you're asking about castles, there's just questions about how society works, really. You just don't seem to have thought about employment or anything, or but where food comes from.
Well,
Do you sort of live a cosseted life?
I never. This is, entry level.
Okay, right.
I'm just thinking of some of the people who might be watching this, who will be just coming in at as I say, entry level. After the COVID pandemic, there's a whole generation of people who are unfamiliar with
what's going on.
Basic,
and what they need is to have it explained to them by a man sitting between three enormous blue cats, and that will be comforting to them. This is their way back in, is it? You're like Omid. Omid went to went to Saudi Arabia to help the people. there, and this is about helping people.
I
as
can
well,
do it
isn't
from home. I can do it from here. From South London.
Yeah.
But by the time surely you're holed up in that keep, it's over, isn't it? Shouldn't you be building a tunnel to escape somewhere? I mean, I'm not a castle designer, but
you definitely would. So castles often have postern gates. So these are hidden gates in the walls. So you might be able to escape and slip out through a postern gate.
That's
but
what
you
I
would tend
would
to
be
put
doing.
your
Just for
you
the
tend to
record,
put
I
your
would
well
be
somewhere
slipping
near
out.
the keep, so you've always got a constant supply of water, and you can hold out as long as you possibly could. The word dungeon actually derives from the French word donjon, which was the original name for the keep at the middle of a castle. So the donjon was the place where you kept all of your valuables and you kept everything safe. And suddenly over time that evolved into a place that you keep prisoners. They were considered, of value. And then all of a sudden the idea of a dungeon moved sort of underground. But actually the big tall keep in the middle of the castle is the original dungeon.
It's always struck me as odd that something as magnificent as a castle, when it was built, is then just sort of abandoned, allowed to fall into ruin.
Yeah, I mean, lots of castles were actually slighted after the Civil War. So the last time many of them had a serious military purpose was in the Civil War in the 17th century. Many of them held out for royalist forces, and when the parliamentarians took them, they slighted them, which means they destroyed bits of the walls and made it so that they couldn't be defended ever again. And so that's the state that they were left in for centuries. And you eventually, into the 19th century and into the 20th century, you get this slightly romantic attachment to ruined castles, and they become a place that people want to visit. And that's evolved into what is today, the tourism industry of going to visit castles.
See, that was a good question, and there was a really good answer to it. But basically,
that's what
they were
aiming
abandoned
for,
because they were thought of as pointless. And then later on, people went, "Oh no, I like that. It looks really good. Let's look after it and invent the National Trust in English Heritage." And now what's happening is people are thinking, "Let's take over the National Trust in English Heritage and get all that land and give all the money to people in Dubai
and build flats."
Yeah.
Have I ever told you and you can use this, I imagine you get employed for various sort of talks and corporate events, Matt, my castle designer joke?
Oh no.
Would you like it? Would you like to hear it? I'm a castle designer. What am I designing? What am I doing? Well, I'm designing the tops of the walls. Okay, I'm a castle designer, just the up and down. Okay, what am I designing now? I'm a castle designer. What am I designing now? Like that. Another one there. Like
arrow slits?
Yes, I'm designing the windows. I'm a castle designer. What am I doing now?
A drawbridge?
I'm just closing my laptop because I've done 2 designs today. I'm a bit tired. Matt, it's been fantastic. If we wanted to learn more about castles, I know that you have your podcast, and I dare say you do mention castles. Is there somewhere we should go to look for details?
We have several episodes on castles on Gone Medieval. So we've done a history of the castle. We've done some episodes about Edward I's castles in Wales and all sorts of things. Fantastic.
Thanks so much for talking to us, Matt. Always great. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, Harry.
Lovely to hear you again. Matt Lewis.
That was really interesting.
It was.
I wasn't expecting that.
It always is.
Yeah.
It always is interesting.
I mean, it doesn't sit very comfortably in the programme, to be honest.
Complete handbrake turn. But
I mean, you can't just have, like, you've done 2 different podcasts at the same time. Well, what people like that food one that James Acaster does with that other bloke,
Ed Gamble,
laughing bloke. That
steady.
He doesn't do anything, but that is about food. They don't suddenly stop and talk about medieval design for 20 minutes. There needs to be
what was,
or you have to have all different things.
If I may,
yeah.
What was the BBC? What was Lord Reith's vision?
Educate, entertain, and inform.
It's the Harry Hill Show.